body of the so the council meeting will be video recorded and the recording is published on the Shire of Dundas site. The Shire of Dundas recognises the national remaining as traditional custodians of the Shire of Dundas and respects to their elders. Attending meetings and 2 declarations of interest, potential interest. Sitting. Michelle sitting. For application in absence. On page 7. I'll move that. So we have a recommendation that Council Grant, Council Ryan is proposing to leave absence. Article 2, leave of absence. There's public summary to the council and it's not required to be or not. Your recommendation that Council Grant Council Clark's application for leave of absence. No.
We have public question time. Sorry,
Yes,
my question is regarding 10.2.3. I'm just wondering if someone can explain to me what's a ban for councils. Be exempt of subject to scale back. What is, someone explain what ban for councils? Please.
All councils are relegated into bans, depending on what size council. So somebody like Bully or City of Perth or most of the big metro councils are band 1. Smaller or larger regional councils are band 2. And then larger, really regional councils are band 3. We are band 4.
That depends on population.
Yeah, thank you. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on 17th of June be confirmed as actually enacted. Anybody have interest in intervention, charging? Happy with that? Those in favour? Reputations and presentation. So we have some reports from our trip to Canberra. Take a while. Please now reply. So this year the NGO, which is the National General Assembly, which is the local government conference in Canberra, kicked off with the regional forum, which hosted 600 plus delegates. The forum started with Brendan Moon, who is the coordinator general of the National Emergency Management Agency in NEMA. Some of the main points that Brendan made were that natural hazards pose a risk to community safety and viability. Local governments are essential to emergency management. The best outcomes are achieved when response and recovery is locally led. NEMA is committed to building a sector for every opportunity. Increasing natural disasters risk overwhelming local governments where they end up in a permanent cycle of response and recovery. Anticipatory action, supply vulnerability, critical infrastructure challenges, warning systems and capability remains an issue. Increased anticipatory action needs to occur across government boundaries and mitigation and investment needs to increase. Recovery and reconstruction costs are growing at an accelerated rate. And there needs to be an increase in nationally enabled and community-led solutions by increasing capability and capacity, and local government needs to be central to these arrangements. Funding must also include drought and not just rapid onset events. Then we heard from the Chief Development Officer, Regional Remote Australia for the NBN. They talk a good story. I don't know how it looks practically on the ground, but fibre is being rolled out deeper into the regions, and by 2030 will be in more remote areas. They have undertaken a fixed wireless upgrade and speeds. So they spent 750 million on that. NBN is committed to ensuring regional communities have access to the same connectivity as metro clients. Then we had Brendan Salt, AM, from the Demographic Group. His presentation was both extremely informative and very entertaining. His predictions or commentary for this country in relation to agriculture were particularly interesting, given the fact the current government seems to be not supportive of our agriculture industry. Some of his main points were that regions are on the rise. There's a predicted 25% rise in global population in the next 25 to 30 years. The regions will be key to managing the increased population. We should be aiming for 40% business with increased crop production and increased funding for transport and infrastructure for region supply. Australia is the 11th richest nation of 195, but the wealth is not distributed evenly. And the US, with a higher population, is higher up the list at 6th, higher up the list based just on the population. We're up from 20th in 1994 due to the sale of gas, coal, iron ore and agricultural products. We do have capacity to deliver as a first world country. We could be moving towards higher agricultural production. We are in a space where increased production leads to higher mechanisation and automation, and less people will be required. We have a higher preference for lifestyle, for example, FIFO workers. Some stats to consider: 33% of Australians are born overseas, in comparison to the US of 16% and the UK of 15%. The best town in Australia is Kiama. That's where the tree changers go, and for work and etc. That's apparently the place to be. Gateway lifestyle and trading towns are seeing increased populations, while somewhere like Kalgoorlie has a declining population. Regional Australia has access to cheaper housing. Peak home ownership time at 73% was way back in 1966. In 2016, rentals have overtaken home ownership and increased to 62%. Those in the 85-year plus bracket will increase approximately 10 to 12,000 per year, set to peak in 2032, which is not that far away, really. This leads to a high demand for aged care facilities and workers at approximately 1,000 per month that we will need. Crop farmers such as those in Esperance will require services in town, so the future is in agribusiness and mining. And the fun part of his talk was about acronyms again. He says no one loves an acronym more than a demographer. So he shared some of his favourites, which I thought might all be interested in. So we have pumpkins. That's PUMCINS. They are professional urban middle class in nice suburbs. We have kippers. They are kids in parents' pockets eroding retirement savings. We have vespers. They're virus escapees seeking provincial Australia. And my personal favourite, which also seemed quite popular with the rest of the audience, Lombards. Lots of money, but a really ridiculous. Then we heard from Matt Sinjak from Telstra about AI, which is very scary. We will require skills and digital understanding to embrace technology. Local governments are working with many legacy systems which will require careful planning to upgrade without disruption. Metro local governments are facing increased costs to upgrade, so there's little competition, which means higher costs. Local governments have high-tech services with high complexity, which require tools and systems to manage. A modular interoperable approach seems to work best and to focus on critical components first. AI will be used in some form through apps, etc. Can lead to increased productivity by using it to check things such as governance and planning. So instead of one person sitting scrolling through the planning app all day, you can just tell the AI what it is you're looking for and they'll just advise. Parameters can be set as to where AI can be used and what the risk is of using it. There is a high risk of deep fake content, which is sadly relatively easy to create. And the use of AI can increase productivity where a task involves a heavy administrative burden. Data on Copilot. Most of us are dealing with Copilot stuff on our computers now. But that data is actually stored in Australia and information can be found within an organisation. We had Jordan Gesundheit gave us a quick rundown on Snap Send Solve, which is an app that you can get, so you can take a snap with your phone and the phone will log your location on that app and then send the issue to the relevant authority. I receive about 1.6 million reports per year, covering everything from abandoned shopping trolleys, toaster pit damage, damaged book cards, etc. The service is free, but there's also a paid service which will email issues direct to the relevant authority. In case of reports to local governments, 95% go straight to the works team from photo location of data, and this can lead to increased customer satisfaction as issues are solved in a more timely manner. The Katherine Town Council has been using Snap Send Solve, found time savings and increased efficiency. So reports are not restricted to having to be lodged at business hours, and it assists in things like locations of illegal dumping, tree condition reports, for asset management. Now, the volume of data can sometimes overwhelm the ability to budget repairs, but it does allow earlier intervention and can be embedded into the council website. Dr. Jackie Shermer shared some insights into drought resilience. Resilience is defined as the capacity to prepare, respond, recover and adapt to healthy levels of wellbeing over the long term. Now, we need to recognise that it can be difficult. Know when to ask for help and support others. Drought is a hidden problem with a slow onset, actually media reinforcing negativity. Recovery is often hampered by lack of trades and difficulty in finding where to look for financial advice, etc. Investment is required in planning preparation, support programs for financial support and to reduce the isolation risk. Communities can support by making it easy for people to connect socially with free transport, etc. And mental health support is crucial, but there is an undersupply of mental health providers in rural and remote areas. We have Ken Beer, who's the principal engineer from Safe System Solutions, talking about road safety and Vision Zero. The National Road Strategy 2021 to 2030 focus on safe systems. It's future focused. The traditional road safety strategy was where, how, and actions to reduce incidents. There's no planning starting in the future, so vehicle speeds, road users, all that sort of thing. So you have to come back to actions for zero death and serious injury crashes. They will still happen, but they need to be managed to human tolerance levels, which are survivable limits. So we need to set the vision, because a lot of vehicles in 2030 will still be around in 2050. So, we're still with elderly vehicles on the roads. The biomechanic speed versus the impact of the injury speed. You need to consider movement, place, all of that sort of thing. We need to track treatments to upgrade road infrastructure. We need to have a strategy that's modelled from baseline and a scenario for future, and look at capability and capacity building in design of treatments. And there is a changing landscape on our roads now with e-scooters and e-bikes, which seem to be causing more than the emission. Professor Jenny May spoke to us about better mental health in regional communities. She is working on equity, journalism and race matters at the time of her presentation. There's differences, services, practitioners and population, and increased proportion of mental health beds in the private sector. There is gradient support for the modified Monash system. The more remote, the more support. Some of that really bears out. There are positive aspects of rural life, increased satisfaction and wellbeing. They are trying to elevate the rural generalist practices, trying to elevate medical practitioners providing comprehensive GP and emergency care and other psychological skills, plus nurses, so nurse practitioners and multidisciplinary teams. And they're moving to training health professionals. They're moving training of health professionals to rural areas, so that coming from rural areas will encourage rural staff to stay. The service design should consider capacity for face-to-face plus follow-up virtually, and it does rely on connectivity and digital capacity, which lets us down in some places. On the first day of the conference proper, we heard from Dr. Anne West, the Shadow Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories. Started off all right, she sort of ended up a bit disaster, but anyway, she started out really well. Local government takes up the slack where market fails. There's some issues with the large renewable projects, farming suffering, so many complaints coming to local governments. Sense of connection is important, particularly in times of disaster. The immigration policy to put people in regional areas tends to cause a few issues. There is a Regional Australian Future Fund for roads and healthcare, universal service obligation for all telcos, that they must provide a service. Divestiture of power for supermarkets and keeping nuclear as part of the mix. So there was a release for the report on local government sustainability, which we all the local governments had input into. We haven't seen that report released yet. Financial assistance grants should be divided more equitably, and should keep the local roads and community infrastructure and non-competitive grants as a priority. We then heard from the Governor-General. So it was her first anniversary as the Governor-General. She made her first appearance as the Governor-General, her first public appearance at the local government conference last year. She just touched on some of the highlights of her first year, the Cyclone Tracy Remembrance, this is King Charles, the Paris Paralympics, and she does put out, I think she's the first Governor-General to really embrace social media, so she puts quite a few posts out. If you're interested, read the civics and the role of Governor-General, her social media spot is GD_Australia. We then have about geopolitics. We're all battling with what the World Economic Forum terms a crisis. There's competition not within the system but for the system, and moving toward geo-economic order overtaking geopolitics. There's structural shifts in the international system, which increases tension, breakdown in truth and trust, and a rise in populism. Populism, we get decrease in law, decrease in legal truth, decreased checks and balances, and shoring up your own power is a priority. There's geotechnology, competition in the AI space, and power is the basis of trade. Climate crisis includes increased tensions between powers to gain control of critical minerals, displacing of people due to the climate, distrust of increased powers to lower power and increased divide between countries. There's risks to all of that, is that when a crisis hits, we're not prepared and we need to take a long-term view to be prepared. The death of truth and trust is calling out the centre of politics and causing increased division. Wars, blokes and stranger danger, so shrinking back behind borders, the retail is very vulnerable and not prepared. Economic logic, the efficiency advantage, geopolitical logic is taking precedence, and that increases risks over governance. Then Mark Burris took over on the same sort of thing. Structural changes here to stay, and changes are happening quickly. There is some advantage in this instance to being remote. The economy since the 90s has run off construction. 1996, the RBA implemented a new standard of how to manage growth. Interest rates were determined at between 2 and 3% for inflation. Outside that parameter, will take preemptive action. 96 to 2020, inflation between 2 and 3%, general cycle of up and down, confidence in business, etc. COVID, high unemployment, interest to 0.1%, led to inflation due to overspending government. The structure of how we used to plan changed from COVID and current state of geopolitical space. So the RBA is continuing with the previous inflation cap of 2 to 3% after the review. The ABS numbers determine what interest will do and the CPI. It's a complicated little system that the GDP indicates growth. Consumer expenditure is 70% weighting of the GDP. So the last 12 quarters have gone backwards, and 8 of the 12. Government expenditure, state and federal, has increased since COVID and is continuing. And GDP is propped up by government spending on infrastructure. Business investment is generally runs from 27%, it's currently down to 23%. There's not enough business investment. We're landing on initiatives to create prosperity and employment. So we're currently in negative territory on the GDP. Have a chat from Jason Clark about how to solve problems, which was also very interesting. There's 5 parameters to deal with. So know the problem, have ideas, have energy, which is the action people, people who can plan, and then the people who put barriers up. And what flows from that is you know the problem, so you formulate the ideas and barriers. You have the idea, they'll lock horns with each other. The action people come along and busy around and try and jolly everybody along, so the rest of them all disengage. The planning people, they lose the ideas people, and then the barrier people, then the planners go, so the whole thing turns to poop, basically. So yeah, there were 7 solutions to that problem. So try the opposite way, redirect the energy, soften the blow, start again, go with it, look again, or give up. So that was quite entertaining as well. Kieran Power talked to us about leadership in the changing climate. That was interesting in relation also to climate adaptation. The local government role is unique, irreplaceable, and nationally significant. And local government adaptation is worth doing. So an additional consistent funding of 400 million a year will deliver more than double benefits. We could manage to get it. AI. Using AI for personalised precision brain medicine being used in many US hospitals. That was pretty interesting. Omniscient AI, if you have time to Google that and have a look. Multimodal AI is taking off and humans are multimodal. AI needs to model on how human assistive search, so personalised results. It learns from user interactions, increased efficiency, less manual effort. Chatbots, they're multi-system, agentic AI. So they have autonomy, perception and reasoning, and they learn and react. It's kind of scary. People will be more important than ever. Can do tasks at pretty low, not good at multi-step, and no social interaction. That's the AI. That misaligns human morality, and so it will require human intervention. It is good at getting to what matters, so it can be time saving and it can explore detail quite quickly. So I have a very interesting vehicle management system based on AI technology. Emergency management. So councils are responding to disasters by increasing capacity and capability in their own local governments. All local governments require more resources, funding and training. Recovery windows between disasters are becoming shorter. We must rely on multi-purpose actions and build redundancy into systems. Queensland has established a buyback scheme in flood-prone areas. So they have a resilient homes fund and relocation funding. And New South Wales is finding alternative blocks in the same. Queensland Annual Conference is calling for insurance companies to recognise mitigation lyrics and reflect on the premiums. The challenge is to find a way to involve community to collaborate with the state and insurance companies. There's issues around people not leaving homes without pets and increased compliance in evacuation centres to affect their life. Collaboration council to council rather than having to reinvent the wheel on how to build back disaster destroyed infrastructure, and mutuals to work with councils to assist funding requests. LGAQ has been paying for flights for volunteers from other councils to disaster affected areas as part of the membership subscription. They also provide info on which products companies are eligible for DRFA funding, which is the disaster recovery funding, which is probably very good for people to get. There is impact in mental health, and there is some queries on how they can better support people recovering from natural disasters in that space. Again, more funding required, more hazard mapping take place, and integrate service providers with government to assist local governments to be better prepared for redeployment. Mandating plans and capabilities for each local government implies that if not done, something will be withheld. If planning is complete, there's a high probability of gaining funding. The system is not sustainable in the current form, and local government does need more support. We need to understand where the gaps and vulnerabilities are to increase planning experience. There's also a problem with volunteer burnout. It's a high level of volunteers require volunteer management and targeted recruitment to increase retention. Volunteers are not actually free, increased costs across the board, and issues around instant volunteers with police checks, moving the children, etc. We need the right people around the table to prepare and put mitigation in place. The Coleman Review, which is an interesting read, if you also have a chance to read that, I could not explain away the huge variance in responses to emergency management across different local government areas. So there's a requirement for some involved clarity with that as well. That will do me for now. That's enough for that.
Let's start from 2025 Regional Forum, June 24th to 27th. It included 500 councils across Australia and over 700 delegates attended, with many high-profile speakers. Working, energising, forcing collaboration was this year's inspiration. Paul Gilroy Whitehouse gave this year's welcome to country. Items included road safety, roads to recovery, safer road, fund financial sustainability, supporting us as local governments, continue to grow. Many speakers, including Brendan Moon, AM, ASM, Co-Ordinator General for the National Emergency Management, filled in for one of the ministers. Changing climates and changing commodities, mitigation investments, challenge and core focus on mitigation, Speaker Gavin Williams, Chief Development Officer, Regional and Remote NBN, spoke about more resilient networks in all areas of Australia. By September, we will have faster networks, 500 times more by 2030. Listen to more great speakers like Phyllis Miller OAM, Bernard Salt AM, talked about the Wealthification Australia, 25% increase in population equals also 25% commodities, and our agriculture business should be 25% plus increase over the next. On the free seminar on drought communication resilience presented by the University of Canberra. Jack Schroeder said that how community stay strong through community challenges, supporting one another. How everything's normal. There's no right or wrong way to cope. How to stay strong and resilient. Building stronger and safer networks. Can be our national strategies, strategic road-wise framework. Manage road star ratings and low speeds to get more stars. Going through case studies and biochemicals. Protecting our community, policies regarding e-bikes, etc. I'd like to quote something. It was a 15-year high trends on deaths on Australian roads. These fines are so vitally important to assist and help with road safety and improve safety with many other road safety conversations. Australian Local Government Women's Association Network Breakfast celebrated their 75 years. Quote, the success of every woman should be the inspiration to one another. We should lift each other. Serena Williams first quoted this. The importance of women supporting and encouraging one another's achievements rather than viewing each other as rivals. This sentiment provides a positive and collaborative environment where women can thrive and reach their full potential. Was one of the main aims at Alba's networking breakfast. The key speaker was Kate Driver. The theme was collective leadership, a creative and collaborative leadership enhances community development. The ALJ National General Assembly quoted, big challenges, bold decisions. Almost 190 motions were debated and 1,600 delegates attended. Welcome Country for the National General Assembly was performed by Selena Walker. These motions helped to inform policies and are vital in keeping local government connected to federal and state government. Ministers and national experts and other local governments, it's all about building our nations, the challenges we all experience and across Australia and the crucial role councils play. We heard from the Rural Health Minister for Rural and Remote Australia was very informing workforce strategy for 2022 to 2032. Professor Jennifer May AM Rural Health funding allowance, talking financial stability with Delis Williams. More people spoke. Mayor McBurnett, Minister's address, the Honourable Christine McBain MP. The leader for the opposition address was next with our Dr. Anne Webster, MP, Shadow Minister for Regional Development and Local Government and Territories. Next Minister's address was Senator James McGrath, Shadow Minister for the Minister of State. Shadow Minister for Urban Infrastructure for Cities, Shadow Minister for the 2032 Olympic Games and the Paralympics. The Governor General's address, Her Excellency, the Honourable Ms. Sam Moslem, AC, the 28th Governor General of Australia, who was sworn in the day before last year's National General Assembly. Dr. Meridian Farwell, lead partner in geopolitics in Australia, the polycrisis, climate change, adaptation, mitigation, energy transition, community engagement, and mental health. Mark Forrest AM, the Australian business leader and financial expert, was very insightful also. NGA featured the launch of Alba's exciting new research, adapting together local government leaderships in a changing climate. Jason Clark quote, from big picture to local action. He was another great speaker who explained the importance of local governments, how important our roles are to the community and what we do. As much of what we do is invisible and of importance, and the ripple effect. Adapting together local government leaderships in a changing climate. Speakers included Amy Crawford, Lord Mayor Anna Reynolds, Amanda Pooh, Kieran Power, Artificial Intelligence for the Future, Human Connection. Quote, It's not the strongest species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the ones that adapt to change. Stefan, I can't say his last name, Steele, former CEO of Facebook, benefits of multimodal artificial intelligence, AI technology and speed. Another great question and answer panel for societies shaping it tomorrow included Stefan Sheila, Tim Goldsby Smith, Alex Cheap. Hydrogen business overview, adapting together local government leaderships in a changing climate. Concurrent listening sessions on NETS and RJ Safer Roads as delegate on the Roadwise Committee. All levels of government were urged to work together to meet road safety solutions. Very valuable and interesting learning session highlighted many important factors. I'll just name a few. Mitigation investments, climate change, Australian corporate assets to the rest of the world, stronger growth expected across region WA in decades ahead, job growth, cars, sales and construction, challenges across Australia, getting to net zero, all councils indicated there was a dangerous road in the area due to lack of funding or other reasons. Everyone agreed the need for greater coordination between federal, state and local government to plan and prioritise funding to meet local needs, and how there would be great benefit in sharing these case studies and practice in Australia and overseas, which positively impact road safety. Speed reduction in some cases, multiple road users like we have, suggestions that registration and licensing systems need to be overhauled to ensure better driving practices, speed reduction as well. Panelists include but not limited to Hyundai, Australian Roads, Safety System Solutions, National Transport and Research Association, Australasian College of Road Safety, Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communication, Sports and the Arts. Many topics were discussed, including road safety strategies. We were all encouraged to consider the primary use of particular roads to identify treatments as needed, black spots, traffic management, speed reduction as a road safety strategy or last resort, funding gaps in infrastructure despite funding. There's still large gaps at local government levels, and this was high priority for nearly all governments. The need to qualify risks and funding based on data-driven strategy safety ratings. The main conversation explored the experience of individual drivers compared to a wider data set, which funding decisions are often made. Practical low-cost solutions were also explored, driver behaviours and compliance, ideas for the future. Our local governments do not have capacity to manage the road system investments such as bridges, cycling paths and even roads, which are within their jurisdiction. We'll all invite to take a tour of Hyundai's manufacturing plant in Singapore, wherever over there. This plant opened in 2023, producing over 30,000 battery electric cars per year. Included numerous other excellent initiatives to try to implement. There was many exhibitions over there as well. There were 74 actually. I'll just name a couple that I liked. Small Business Peak, which was Workplace Essentials Made Simple. Connected, how wireless technologies enable connectivity in your home and community. Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and the Water. Australia Post Parcel Lockers, in how we can bring these to our town. Future Village, this was one of my favourite stalls. Nature-based placemaking, making a statement and bringing life to our main street. Small canopies to hang and sell boarding pots, flowers or adding greenery to the middle of our street like floating gardens. On our final day, we have Ministers Engagement Forum. Something that's okay. National priorities and international solutions. I personally got to speak with Senator Honourable Katie Gallagher, Minister for Finance, Minister for Public Services, Minister for Women and Minister for Government Services. I also got one time with the Honourable Darren Chester MP, also David Spears. In conclusion, I'd like to the contribution and engagement throughout the regional forum and the National General Assembly will continue to help shape the future of local governments in Australia, and I'm proud to have been part of that.
Yes, Council, I'll just be brief. I wanted to congratulate, it's always a privilege to go as a supporting officer. Firstly, to acknowledge that that large amount of agenda items really is elected members across Australia standing up and fighting for the needs of their local communities. And even though there is sometimes very rigorous debate and people might disagree on the details, those people are standing up, and often it's the first time that they do public speaking in such a large space. They're standing up and putting themselves forward to represent their community. So it's always a privilege to see that. And I think that needs to be acknowledged, as well as our elected members that I travel with, that they really are there representing, especially our smaller rural and remote communities. With the information sessions, I stepped into the workplace and workforce session, which just highlighted that the Shire of Douglas is not alone in the challenges that local government is facing, and we eagerly await the report from the Local Government Sustainability to be released, which will again highlight that it's actually there's shared workforce problems. So local governments nationwide are facing challenges in retaining skilled staff, particularly in rural and remote areas. Factors such as limited career progression opportunities in local government, competitive private sector offers, and in Douglas and the Goldfields, we are in direct competition with mining and with also a FIFO workforce, so that impacts us. As well as we are now seeing a demographic shift on how our younger people want to participate in the workforce, so that working from home, being resourced to actually bring AI into our administration and into our works department without actually stealing human jobs. So that's an area that we need to look at. One of the things that was highlighted was also safety and wellbeing of front of house staff, so customer service people, where it's unacceptable, and it's quite some rigorous safeguards in protecting education staff and people that work in health, and how patients interact with staff, and how school community interacts with principals and teachers. Customer service staff seem to be left open to ridicule, attacks on social media, physical assault. So safety is a big thing, and an area of body of work that is ongoing. Skills development, pressing need for continuous skills development within local government workforces. And more, the feedback was that local governments are looking at retaining more of a generalist workforce and then bringing in expertise, because to attract them out into the regions, you're looking at housing, you're looking at moving families from metro centres, and what can your community provide. So it's another area that especially the regional local governments are looking at. And then there was discussion about migrant workforce and attracting migrant families to help build community capacity as well. But also highlighted was the importance to look at beyond what we traditionally would, and make sure that our workforces are diverse and inclusive, and look at how we can support people that would require maybe a more flexible workplace, people living with disability, people that can bring different skills into the workforce and still contribute, and that your workplace can become more diverse and more accepting. Highlighted also, and I think it's the crux of the matter, and our President and Council have already spoken to it, is the requirement for funding. And actually, we all feel pretty confident that local government, if it was left with the tasks of local government, could actually sustain quite a workable employment team. However, state and federal governments continue to add more onto a local government list without resourcing, without funding, and then that requires LGs to expand their workforce and to be innovative in the way that they address the demands of government as they hand down more requirements. So thank you for the opportunity to support our elected members, and well done to every council that went there and represented their community.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to reports and committees. So we have GROC. We had a GROC meeting last Friday. It's published today in Melbourne. Murray Carter from DFIS, he's the Executive Director, Rural Fire Division, goes presentation on a few DFIS things. The last fire season was average, with the number of large significant fires actually down. The National Fire Danger Rating System is now 3 years old and it's stabilising and appears to be working. Consideration is being given to changing the reading from the 9 a.m. reading to a midnight reading in order to establish more reliable and relevant readings for the declaration of a total fire ban. If any of you heard the other day, we had a total fire ban in Manjaraku, and then the following day we had a total fire ban in Lamington and Menzies last week. So it seemed to be a little bit out of kilter with the way the weather was going, but hence they want to try and shift that reading to get a bit more reliable. Ravensthorpe and Esperance have received some risk mitigation management funding. The state government has budgeted for 6 new SESMs. Nobody likes acronyms more than DFIS, even more than demographers. So a SESM is a Community Emergency Service Manager. They've committed to 6 new ones, but we don't know where they're going to deploy them yet. Esperance has one for interest, but the rest don't. The Grain Harvest Aerial Support Program, where they have planes on standby during harvest in case there's a fire, has now been made permanent, so that has been a trial up until now. The Chief Bushfire Control Officer's Forum was held at the Bushfire Centre of Excellence in Polly, which our Chief Bushfire Officer attended. There was some discussion around freight route closures in emergency situations and how to manage supplies, particularly cold stores that might get stuck and the roadblock for some time. The bushfire assessment level ratings are causing some issues for development due to increased costs to comply, etc. So there is a national review currently taking place. Disaster recovery funding continues to have issues through the application process and then access to the funding. The current process is not efficient, and nobody thinks that it is. Shire of Coolgardie updated the group on their current situation and measures being taken to improve their position. Walga updated the group on rating proposals for large renewable energy projects, and a community benefits guide has been produced. A local government communications agreements discussion paper and a submission has been made to the ERIDE. Golfers Experts Development Commission is assisting with the rollout of funding promises from the election, including our upgrade to basketball and tennis courts and our new pickleball courts. They'll be attending the Converge Esperance Forum next week in Esperance, and also working on an aquaculture precinct in Esperance, which is a joint project with the Shire and WAC Native Title Aboriginal Corporation. Regional Development Australia has implemented their 25-26 business plan and continuing governance training through the region, and the draft connectivity plan will be out for comment soon. That's in relation to how good our internet connection is. And the RDA is a sponsor for the Converge Experts event. Nikki Curtis gave us an update on our Regional Climate Alliance program. So Curtis has been successful in obtaining grant funding under the Community Water Supply Partnership Program for a solar pump and tank at Broners Dam to assist in firefighting. EV charging stations should start installation in 20 months at Leonora and Menzies. Trees for our urban greening project have been delivered around the region. Unfortunately, our planned tree plant day had to be postponed last week due to extremely unfavourable weather, but mostly due to unreliable airlines. So our team from and parts were unable to do it nevertheless, and community planning days will be advised in due course, and this program is set to run for 3 years. Our draft regional drought resilience plan has been out for comment and will now be refined to produce a final plan for implementation. Feedback was provided to Walga for their submission on the draft guideline on community benefits for renewable energy projects. More planning reform is proposed by the state government. A regional response from the GBROC will be compiled and submitted to that form. The Supreme Court has determined that land which is the subject of a miscellaneous licence is rateable land, so local governments can now rate these tenements. A letter of thanks to Mount Magnet for their effort in this space will be sent from the GDROC. Of note, the people that Mount Magnet were arguing the toss with have lodged a formal appeal against that, so watch this space, anything can happen there. Discussion took place around local government amalgamations. It was broadly decided that the group supported the current Walgett position that any amalgamation should be on a voluntary basis. However, a formal motion was not arrived at and the item was laid on the table for further consideration. Made some progress in the management of rail crossings and the responsibility for them, and a new agreement will be sent out to affected local governments shortly. A summary of the state budget for Gold Coast estimates was provided. Notably, promised funding for the Euclid airstrip upgrade seems to be absent from this budget. Local governments go into a new caretaker period for the upcoming local government elections. Caretaker period will commence the 4th of September and end the day after election results are declared for each local government. The Walgett State Council meeting was held on Wednesday, the 2nd of July at the Walgett offices. Prior to the State Council meeting, we had a strategic forum which covered St John WA initiative to make AEDs, so they're the little community defibrillators, as accessible as fire extinguishers. So there has been a rise in what is known as silent heart attacks, and these are not normal heart attack presentations and are characterised by increased blockages with less symptoms. There is a first responders app that you can get on the phone, which can locate you and direct you to the nearest AED if that situation arises. And St John are hoping to encourage local governments to assist by having staff like their rangers carry AEDs in their vehicles because they're roaming staff and they're nearest to an incident. We're also given a presentation on the newly created community benefits and engagements guide for large-scale renewable energy projects. Guide provides information, case studies and templates to provide guidance in the space. Still some issues to work through, including how we can rate these projects, the legislative framework around them and the need for benefit to be linked to the development as in the planning process. Items considered at State Council meeting include offences which could be considered for council to be suspended or disqualified, changes to the makeup and powers of the development application panels and endorsement of the new public library agreement. State Council meeting, next State Council meeting will be hosted by the Shire of Davis on the 4th and 5th of September. Regional Road Group next meeting is a date to be advised. We have not had a General Road Wise committee meeting. Okay, so we had a LEMAC meeting on the 18th of June. A forum on a disability inclusive emergency plan will be held by Woolly Boulder, Coolgardie and Dundas on the 18th of August as part of that project, the Disability Inclusive Emergency Management by the National Emergency Management Agency. So John WA have given 2 presentations on emergency response protocols with Pentoro. Committee was updated on the appointment of presiding and deputy presiding member for this committee, and this is not a formal local government committee, but rather comes under the Bushfires Act, which gives the committee the required flexibility, engagement and coordination with stakeholders. An item was raised in relation to holding a LEMAC meeting at Euclid, which has happened in the past, and council will consider at a workshop whether or how to include a LEMAC meeting to combine travel, etc., with an ordinary meeting of council held in Euclid, which is this could also be used as an opportunity for Department of Communities to audit the evacuation centre at Euclid. Waypole Norseman have increased long-range traffic patrols, and there had been a reduction in truck fires and rollovers. Norseman District Hospital had 2 new nurses commencing and were undergoing the hospital accreditation. The Fire and Rescue Service will undertake some road crash training and had 1 new volunteer interested in joining. Main Roads WA was undertaking a joint heavy vehicle action with the National Heavy Vehicle Authority on trucks, and a vegetation weeds clearing program being carried out on the air highway towards Euclid, not the full time. So, Shire of Dundas has graded crews on the Hyden Northman Road, and the work should be complete by month end. RAV permits will be added to fees and charges, and the components have arrived for our remote road closure signs. Our next LEMAC meeting is scheduled for the 20th of August. First management meeting was held on the 10th of July. There's ongoing consultation with the representatives of the Learning Aboriginal Corporation to bring them up to date on previous discussions. And they also requested some clarification around the ILUAs for shack owners re the extension of tenure. Some discussion around future zoning of roadhouse sites and use and development of the old Buford town site, which still has some freehold blocks, largely covered in living sand dunes. Also, management of informal camping and caravanning occurs around the old telegraph station master residence in input on some of the discussions around zoning and preservation of historic sites were requested for consideration at the next meeting, and the next meeting of that committee will be held on September. Moving on. Item 9, announcements by me. We have an announcement. We have recently attended the Local Government Awards Night. We returned triumphant. Have 2 trophies. We have the Roadwise Council Trophy for our Goldfields Esmond Zone for works in road safety, which we have completed an audit of our roads. We have done some upgrade work on our Hyden Norseman / Queen Victoria Rocks Road intersection, which makes that a much better place to drive on. And also we're quite proud to tell everybody that our CEO has been awarded an evidence service award. So congratulations, people, job well done. They don't just hand them out willy-nilly, so very good.
Can I ask who nominated Mr. Fitchett?
And you can't because probably question time's over. But I'll tell you later if you like. Right. Item 10. 10.1.1, proposed mining workforce accommodation in Norseman. Councillors, I have a alternate recommendation of an alternate motion for this item, which is on the screen for everybody to see. So I would like to move that pursuant to clause 68(2) schedule 2 of the Planning and Development Local Plan Scheme Regulations 2015, the Council of the Shire of Dundas not approved development application DA01 2025 to develop workforce accommodation on lots 109 HN76, 110 HN74, 111 HN72 and 112 HN70 Woodliff Street, formerly Allsop Street, Norseman, on the grounds that 1, the permanent use occupancy of the proposed development as requested by the proponent by letter to the Shire dated the 28th of July 2025 is contrary to the meaning of workforce accommodation described in the Shire's local planning scheme. 2, no evidence has been provided to support a longer approval period, e.g. 30 years. And 3, no evidence has been provided that the type and structure of the proposed development is compatible with standards that support a longer lifespan and permanent use occupancy of the proposed development. Is there a second? That's the That's the one, thank you. I will speak to that. Motion. In our LPS2, which is our local planning scheme, the definition of workforce accommodation is being for workers engaged in resource industries on a temporary basis. If approval was granted for this application based on the assertion in that letter that the accommodation is for permanent use, that would conflict with the legal definition in the planning scheme. The letter also claims a 30-year mine life, but no evidence has been provided to support that claim. A request for a longer approval time should be supported by resource data or documentation from Pantoro. We cannot base approvals on unverified assumptions or speculative future mine extensions. The proposed design of the development does not reflect a long-term residential solution. Conventional single or multi-unit residential housing, which is consistent with Norseman's character and the objectives of LPS2, would be a more suitable construction. This is particularly true in relation to objective 2, which is to facilitate and encourage high quality design, built form and streetscapes throughout residential areas. And the continued assertion that bullnose verandas will make everything all right is misguided, as Northland did not traditionally have them. The argument that a 10-year time limit would affect the property valuation does not comply as a valid planning concern under clause 67 of the Planning and Development Regs. As an aside, that development application that was advertised in Kalgoorlie Mine on the Shire website, on notices on the block. And in spite of all that, not a single peep from anybody about the trees that are going to be cleared. So very interesting. But I would urge my fellow councillors to support this alternate motion so that we can make a most important decision. So would you like to speak to that? Okay. Would anybody like to speak against it? Anybody else like to speak for it? No more speakers. We have a motion that says pursuant to clause 68(2) in schedule 2 of the Planning and Development Local Plan Schemes Regulations 2015, the Council of the Shire of Dundas not approved development application DA0125 to develop workforce accommodation upon lots 109 HN76, 110 HN74, 111 HN72 and 112 HN70 Woodliff Street, corner of Allsop Street, Norseman, on the grounds that permanent use occupancy of the proposed development as requested by the proponent by letter to the Shire dated 28th of July 2025 is contrary to the meaning of workforce accommodation described in the Shire's local planning scheme 2. 2, no evidence has been provided to support a longer approval period, e.g. 30 years, and 3, no evidence has been provided that the type and structure of the proposed development is compatible with standards that support a longer lifespan and permanent use occupancy of the proposed development. Those in favour? Those against? Item 10.1.2, the minutes of the Dundas Coastal Planning Committee. Recommendations on page 25.
I'll read that recommendation.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Brown, thank you. That's what Councillor Brown. Anybody against those minutes? Anybody need to add any minutes to make? Happy? We have a recommendation that Council accept the minutes of the Shire of Dundas Coastal Planning Committee meeting held on 8th of May 2025 as contained in the papers related. Those in favour? Item 10.2, 10.2.1, receive the information bulletin, the rest of the following page from the list. Councillor Brown, thank you. We have a recommendation that Council receive the monthly Council's information bulletin for the period ending July 2025. Those in favour? Item 10.2, financial statements to the period ending 30th of June 2025. Thank you. Questions?
No, it's all written as we went through the mid-year review. If we have any direct questions.
You have any questions? Happy? We have a recommendation that Shire of Dundas financial statements for the period ending the 30th of June 2025 be accepted. Those in favour? Item 10.2.3, accounts paid 1st of the 6th 2025 to the 30th of 6th 2025. Those on the bottom of page 46. So, Haven, thank you. Second. I have a recommendation that the Shire of Dundas monthly accounts paid from the 1st of the 6th, 2025 to the 30th of the 6th, 2025 be noted. Those in favour? One. Item 10.2.4, schedule of fees and charges 2025-26. That is on page 49. On that. Councillor Ford. Councillor Bowen, thank you. Let's read that, Councillor Ford. Councillor Bowen. Anybody like to speak against it? Anybody else for it? Okay, we have a recommendation that Council 1 pursuant to section 6.16 of the Local Government Act 1995 and other relevant legislation, Council adopts the schedule of fees and charges for 2025-2026 as included in the papers relating to, and that schedule of fees and charges for 25-26 be imposed as of the 1st of August 2025. 3, an approval be given to the Chief Executive Officer to give local public notice of Council's intentions to impose the schedule of fees and charges for 25-26. Those in favour? Item 10.2.5, the Local Emergency Management Committee. Information is on page 51.
I'll make that recommendation.
I'll second it. I'll speak to Councillor Mayhew. Yeah, that's in favour. Anybody else speak against it? We have a recommendation. The Shire of Dundas Council confirms that the Shire of Dundas Local Emergency Management Committee is no longer considered a formal committee of council. Council notes that the Local Emergency Management Committee has no authority to make decisions that direct or bind the council to a course of action or incur expenditure of council finances or resources. Instead, outcomes from the committee will appropriately be reviewed by the CEO within his authority or escalated to council for a decision when necessary. Those in favour? Item 10.6, attendance at the World Government Convention on the 27th of the 24th September. Information is on page 53.
Make that recommendation.
Who would like to do it?
Myself.
That's a you.
I'd like to.
Do I have a second? Okay. Shall I speak to that, Councillor? No. Councillor Clay? No. Anybody against it? Okay, we have a recommendation that Shire nominate the Shire President, Councillor Elbonza, and Councillor Warner, Councillor McLeod as delegates to attend the 2025 World Local Government Convention in Perth, and to authorise the Chief Executive Officer or appointed senior officer to accompany councillor delegates to provide executives. I convinced at that convention I get a free registration because I'm on statements. You said from registration. Item 2.7, the meeting date and location change for September 2025. Recommendation is on page 56.
I'll move it.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown.
Mike, through the chair.
Mhm.
Just on the meeting on the 19th of August, we can push that to the last week of August. So the,
Hold on, hold on.
It's beyond 26.
So we need to recommend that. Councillor Brown, you agree with that? Are you happy with that amendment? You're not councillor Brown, you're councillor Hogan. For the rationale was?
And council, in September's caretaker period, and it will fire to another couple of days if something comes after that. Make a decision. Go from the 19th to the 26th, that's a whole week. Because once we caretaker mode in September, we can't just go move anything, and it'll give us time if something pops up. We just bring it to council.
With that? Yeah. All this detail there. Okay, so we have a recommendation that the Shire Dundas Council change the date and location of the September 2025 ordinary council meeting as follows. It will become Tuesday the 30th of September, 6 p.m. at Council Chambers here in Northern. And also to include a change to the August meeting to move that from the 19th to the 26th of August. And then any further public meetings that are held throughout the year, such as special council meetings, audit committee meetings, and the elected meetings are set as determined by council. Those in favour? Item 10.2.8. The 2025 Transport and Roads Forum. Wagga. Recommendation is on the table.
I'll move that. Just a minute.
That's about it.
Find it in.
What's the plan? Okay, we have a recommendation that council endorses the attendance of the following elected members at the Wagga Transport and Roads Forum 2025 to be held on Thursday, the 14th of August 2025 at Fraser Estate Reception Centre, Kings Park. Councillor Brown, Councillor Warner, and myself, and the CEO of staff. And authorises the CEO to coordinate registration travel and associated arrangements for nominated vendors. Those in favour? Item 10.2.9, Shire Dundas Road Wise Committee. Recommendation on page 60.
I'll move that recommendation.
That's with the council. Councillor. Everybody want to speak against it? No, we have a recommendation that council one formally appoint councillor Chantal McLeod as chairperson of the Road Wise Committee and nominate a deputy chairperson. Who would like to? And two, appoint Deputy CEO Planning Team to provide administrative support to the committee. Those in favour? 10.3.1. Officers' reports, recommendations at the bottom of page 61.
I'll move that recommendation.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Do you have any questions or whether our officers have anything to add to the report? Happy?
Am I allowed to speak?
No, sorry.
No.
So we have a recommendation that the Shire of Dundas Council receive the Works and Services, Youth and Recreation and Midlands Cultural Community and Visitor Centre reports as contained in papers relating. Those in favour? Item 10.3.2, support for B Central unit deployment and assistance along the air highway. Foundation is on page 64.
Second.
Passport to consider. That would include lots for you guys. We have a recommendation that council supports the B Industry Council of WA's B Century program and offers in principle support for deployment of units along the highway within the Shire of Dundas. Who authorises Shire officers to liaise with BICWA and the truck stop owners, pastoral leaseholders to identify suitable sites for unit placement on Shire managed land, subject to relevant approvals. 3, endorses the promotion of volunteer opportunities through the Shire's communication platforms and networks and train post office delivery staff to assist with inspection and serial maintenance of units, and 4, requests a review in 12 months on the effectiveness and participation in the program to inform future advice and partnership decisions. That's in fact. 10.3.3 is item will withdraw from the agenda, councillors, because it has largely been made redundant because Walgar and our CEO have been putting in hard yards in that space, and it looks like we've made quite a bit of progress in that space. Similarly, item 10.3.4 will be withdrawn for a similar reason. And what was the reason? Because the items that we're going to take to the AGM as a motion for Walga to advocate, and they already advocate, it's already an advocacy division. Item 10.3.5. The SAC MCA submission, regional road funding from equity. Is on 76. Yeah.
I'll leave that recommendation.
Do I have to switch it? Yeah, so Brown, you know, we have to speak against it, let's start. So we have a recommendation that council, 1, supports retaining the current funding and distribution model and assessment conditions under the existing state road funds for local government agreement. Current term in 2026-27 for all future road agreements and funding distribution. And 2, does not endorse the proposed multi-criteria assessment funding cap model or the SAC submission that the Shire residents and City of Cable will propose. Those in favour? Thank you. Item 10.3.6, the GBOT Shire of Dundas Street planting and funding. Recommendation on this, yeah. Just speak to the that's Cogan. Anybody else speak against it? We have an officer recommendation that council 1 acknowledges the emergency tree clearing conducted under statutory exemption in response to serious public safety risks on council managed verges. 2, notes that the works were in accordance with the Environmental Protection Act 1986, relevant clearing regulations, and the Shire's duty of care under the Occupiers Liability Act 1985. 3, requests the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation a $10,000 for an on-site inspection to formally assess remaining trees and provide written guidance on those considered appropriate to retain. 4, reaffirms the Shire's commitment to environmental stewardship through participation in the GBOT native tree replanting program supported by $537,000 grant funding split between the 9 councils. And 5, directs the CEO to continue documenting all inspections, community complaints, and actions taken for transparency and compliance. Those in favour? I have no elected members' motions. We have a late item. I have someone move that we And I will introducing the late item first. Ready?
Okay.
Are you in favour of introducing the late item?
Yes.
Okay, late item, has got a number, we call it 12.1, so it's not long enough. Appointment of a shared regional independent chair for auditors and improvement committees. And this one there. I think, in 21, we could make an entirely amendment, just to say that, across G block and or, I will prefer to find. It's a good one. We don't have to learn it about it. Just we do that. That's about. We have a recommendation that council one support the proposal for appointing a shared regional independent chair for audit risk and improvement committees across GROP and or a rather preferred supplier chair, which should be appointed for 5. 2, the CEO should review the effect of existing charge and its policies 8.9, A14, and 14 and bring them back for adoption by council. And 3, delegate the CEO to provide a short list of available shared regional independent chairs for audit risk and improvement committees for final approval each year. Is in favour? Our next council meeting will now be on the 26th. We held here in Northern at 6 o'clock. Business and that will declare the first day. 26.
26.
7:22. For everybody.